Hi, it's Chris, and this is my review of reading through the Bible in a year chronologically, October 16th, and basically today was all Luke, chapter 11, verses 14, all the way through 12, verse 34. So all Luke, stories of Luke, stories, the accounts of Jesus' life in the book of Luke, how he researched and found these things, and these are the things that he chronicled. And we have Jesus being accused of being the prince of demons, and that's because he healed a deaf or a mute man. The man could not speak, and he told the demon to get out of the man, and the demon left him, and he could speak after that. And so the people accused him of being the prince of demons, and he said, "That's not possible." He said, "You got to understand the way the kingdom works. That if they're driving each other out, then how is he going to get what he's trying to do done? That's not how that works. He is not. He can't. He won't. It's not. That's not going to work. He's not going to drive out demons in order to propel his kingdom. That's just not. He can't take away his warriors. What takes away his warriors is somebody stronger than him. That's me. I'm Jesus. I'm stronger than Satan." He's calling it out. And not so many words, but he's calling that out. He says it. But the one thing I wanted to note here is that this time we see a man that was mute. He couldn't speak, and he had a demon. And when the demon was driven out of him, he could speak again. Yesterday we had the story about a man who couldn't speak or hear, and Jesus healed him, and there was no mention about driving out of demons. And that's something very important to keep in mind and think about, that there's different reasons for different sicknesses. So just keep that in mind. We have to be aware of that. We also have Jesus in the sign of Jonah. Again, that's and he ridicules the people. He tells them, "Look, the people of Nineveh will be way farther ahead than you guys will, because they repented of their sins." So he's accusing them of not repenting of their sins. They're not even recognizing the authority of Jesus. They're not doing that. And Jesus criticizing the religious leaders, again, more of that, just saying, "Hey, you guys have been you guys have been killing the prophets for a long time, and now you're building monuments to these prophets, and your ancestors killed them. You're not paying attention. You're not seeing what's going on. You're worried about yourself more than anything. What sorrow awaits you, experts in religious law. You remove the key of knowledge. You remove the key to knowledge from the people, and you don't enter the kingdom yourselves. You prevent others from entering. Even people that are seeking God, you're getting in the way of that. I've come to remove that. I am the way." Then he has the warning against hypocrisy. And one of the things I see here, this was probably one of my favorite explanations of life and everything. Jesus says, "Dear friends, don't be afraid of those who want to kill your body. They cannot do any more to you after that." So it's not saying that God's going to keep you from dying. But what he says here is, "I'll tell you whom to fear. God, who has the power to kill you and then throw you into hell. Yes, he's the one you should fear." So the next thing that really got me is this. This is a pretty important part of the Bible. It says, "Anyone who speaks against the Son of Man can be forgiven, but anyone who blasphemes the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven." And if you ever ask yourself if you have blasphemed the Holy Spirit, you have not. Because anybody who blasphemes the Holy Spirit, that's the one thing that you can't get forgiven of, and you won't care. You will eventually. When that time comes, when every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord, but you hadn't done the thing. You'd blasphemed the Holy Spirit. You completely ignored that calling to come to Jesus. That's blaspheming the Holy Spirit. Completely ignoring, rejecting God completely. That's what that is. So if you ever think that you have, or you've wondered if you have, it really means that you have not. All right. Let's see. And then this is the other next thing right after that in Luke 12, verse 11. When you are brought to trial in the synagogues and before the rulers and authorities, don't worry about how to defend yourself or what to say, for the Holy Spirit will teach you at that time what needs to be said. And we see a great example of that in the story of the stoning of Stephen in Acts, and how he was accused, brought before the Sanhedrin, and he just let them have it. He gave them the what for, and they took him out and stoned him for it. And as he's being taken out to get stoned, he looks up into heaven and he sees Jesus standing at the right hand of God, standing for him at the right hand of God. He looks up to heaven and he says, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. Just like Jesus did, because he had the Holy Spirit in him, guiding him. And I have to believe the Holy Spirit protected him from feeling any pain, allowed him to come into the presence of God without the pain, because he was in the Holy Spirit. Not because he deserved it, but because he sought God. He sought righteousness. That's what it was all about. It wasn't because he was righteous. It was because he sought after it. He sought to do well, do right. He was obedient. He was trustworthy. That's why he was put in charge of people. And that is a good example of how that these directions from Jesus got put into place. And we can use that to understand. Then the story of the rich fool that says, hey, I'm going to trust in my riches over things. And look at the end of that. He says, I'm going to store, I got all this stuff, all these crops. My crops are doing great this year. I'm going to tear down my barns build bigger ones, and then just take it easy. That's it. So this is awesome. And then he says, you fool, you will die this very night. Then who will get everything you worked for? And then he says, yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, but not. Notice he didn't say it was a fool to store up earthly wealth. It was, don't store up earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with God. That is the most important thing. That's what we need. We need that relationship with God. That is more important than riches. He's not condemning riches. He's not condemning good living. He's not condemning those things. He's condemning the lack of relationship with God. That's what we should be teaching. So then he teaches about money and possessions and about how not to worry. Why we don't worry. Because God takes care of the birds of the air and the flowers of the field. He clothes them beautifully. He cares about each and every one of us. We just need to rely on him. Look to him. And sometimes in times of desperation, it's very important that we look to him for our needs. Notice it does say our needs, not our wants. We look in the story of Exodus where the Israelites had 40 years of their needs being met from manna and quail, and rocks spewing out water where there was no water. God took care of his people, and he'll take care of us. And we just need to trust. But then we also go back to that, don't be afraid of what can kill the body. There's nothing more that can be done after that. There's so much more to us than our body and what we need, what we think we need, what we want. So much more than that. Don't be afraid of that. Fear God.